Buying your first sailboat can go horribly wrong, and in this instance, it did. From huge unexpected expenses to crashing into a seawall to huge costs from the repair facilities. Let's dive in. We love to help get new people sailing and get them into the sport because new people coming in means the sport we love gets bigger and bigger. And if more people are buying and selling boats, then they'll kind of stay cheaper on the low end. But when a new person comes in, it's not always 15 on the beam, if you know what I mean. Sometimes it goes horribly wrong. And I spend a lot of time talking to new sailors, would be people that are coming into the sailing world. And in one such conversation, they pointed me at this Reddit post. We came across this, and it's about a new sailor who had some trouble. Let's check this out. He's replying to somebody else's post, and he says, I did exactly what you wanted to do. I even took some classes before buying the boat. It was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. I still love sailing, but I was lured in by how cheap the boat was. I bought a $2,000 Catalina 22 in very good condition. That was where the cheap ended. The slip, the bottom paint, an upgraded battery, a depth gauge, a new engine, more on this later, was about 3 times the price of the boat over the first 2 years. After some sailing lessons, he tried to sail her single-handed. On good days, it was great, but when I got into situations I couldn't deal with, raising the main with 15 knots of wind, the halyard got wrapped around the mast, as it does, and I had to leave the helm to untangle it, and the boat started weather vaning and toward the waves, and the waves started hitting him broadside, heeled maybe 20 degrees from the waves alone, and got dangerously close to shore. He was completely out of his depth. One class does not a sailor make, he says. Next, he says, I got into a situation where I was pushed into a concrete seawall, hit stern first, and destroyed my outboard, which necessitated buying a new one. After the outboard was destroyed, I bought the wrong replacement. He doesn't go into what that means. I assume it's probably he bought a short shaft and needed a long shaft maybe, and he had to pay for towing a couple times to the repair center to reset the outboard mount. The repair yard doesn't lift a finger for less than 4 digits. The slip cost him $4,800 or double the cost of the boat in 2 years. He says he wanted to sail somewhere else, Tahoe, Southern California, maybe Hawaii, but owning a boat doesn't advance that goal any. He still has rent to pay there. He thought his friends and family would be all over it and wanted to join him every weekend. Wrong, wrong, wrong. My kids came with me once because I made them. The wife saw the boat once, but never touched it. He way overestimated other people's interest in his boat. All in, 2 years of sailing cost me $9,000 for like a dozen trips. If you join your local yacht club, each day will be like $100, not $750. He says he still loves sailing, so he sold the boat and got a sailing kit for his canoe, which he sails in the bay. Says now I have maybe 15 trips in the canoe and 30 hours under his belt. I'm back in the market for a larger boat I can handle. I want to go back up to a 30-foot cruiser someday, but I want to target a 15 to 18-foot trailerable keelboat because I don't need space for 5 passengers, and sometimes I want to bring the boat somewhere else, and I can store it at my house outside of the water, which doesn't cost $200 a month. You obviously will have different priorities and requirements, but you don't know them until you've sailed a significant amount. Now let's pick this apart. It sounds to me like this person is in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that is one of the most expensive places in the US to own a boat. It's insane there. Slip prices and mooring balls are just ridiculous, pretty much anywhere in California. I look at the East Coast usually because I know how cheap it can be. There are slips for a couple $100s a summer in places on the East Coast if you don't need water and power. California is hard. There's no denying that, and there's really no way around that. If you know of a good option in California for our friend or others, please leave it in the comments if you have some helpful advice. He bought a Catalina 22, which is an excellent choice for a first boat. I bet most of us had one of those or something similar. Mine was a Chrysler 22. And he got it for about $2,000, which is pretty cheap. And his repairs are bottom paint and batteries and stuff like that. So it sounds like the sails and rigging were in serviceable shape. He took lessons and then he set out single-handed, which sometimes works well and sometimes doesn't. The San Francisco Bay Area can be a big sea to sail alone, especially on a 22-footer, so I don't envy his position here. I was lucky enough to have a calm inland lake nearby that I could learn on and not have to deal with big seas right at the beginning. He talks about having to go up on deck to deal with a halyard and the boat going off course, taking waves on the beam. I think we've all been there, but a tiller pilot may have resolved this problem for him. And then he hit a seawall stern first and destroyed his outboard. That sounds terrifying, and I'd love to find out what happened, but in buying a new outboard, he bought the wrong one. Maybe he could have used a friend here, someone who had a lot of sailboat ownership experience, to get some advice from. Now he has kids and a wife that didn't like the idea of the boat, so they weren't interested in spending time on it. That's all too common. And it sounds to me like for him, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. What advice can we give him and other would be sailors? Another sailor jumped in on the Reddit thread to answer him. He said, "Things you should know. The price of the boat is irrelevant. The cost comes from storage and maintenance." This is very true. Depending on where you are, you're going to need to find seasonal berthing. Think marina fees close to your home. And winter storage, if you live somewhere that you're going to be using winter storage. The costs for hauling, lifting out of the water, and all that get added. His boat, he says, is in Northern Europe, and seasonal fees run between 1,000 and 2,000 euros. For him, about 4,000 euros every year. Maintenance is a must. Free time doing repairs is a sailor's life. Very true. So good that you're excited about sailing. There's always something to fix, and everything marine grade just add a zero to the price. He says get insurance that covers you digging into a $10 million boat. In some marinas, insurance is mandatory, like his. Your life will now be measured in boating units. One boating unit equals $1,000 of local currency. Want to take that weekend trip? Think again. That's one boating unit, and you'll be using that to get your brand new handheld VHF and Dyneema sheets. Sailing is madness. The sooner you accept it, the less hard time you'll have. You're putting your life at risk to fly through the water and wind on a piece of fiberglass and iron. You're going to get cold and wet, defy hundreds of tons of forces, pour your money into varnishing the galley, upgrading your winches, and buying oh so many lines. And fenders, don't ignore the fenders. Safety is paramount, he goes on. Always follow the safe practices and have reverent respect for the sea. I can't stress this enough. Neptune has no tears for you, and he will always claim his due. Good advice here. What can we add? Personally, I cannot stress this enough. Bring a friend with you. Someone with lots of sailing chops, because we learned from things going wrong on our boats. When on a lee seawall or when chaos erupts, odds are we've already done it, got the shirt, and learned the hard way. Having a seasoned sailor on board will most certainly save you from having to learn the hard way like we did. And while that may be difficult if you don't know anyone who sails, there is a solution. Join every sailing club you can find as a crewing member. Most clubs do this. You sign up to be crew for a nominal fee and you get to attend their social events. This will get you ingrained in the local sailing community no matter where you live, whether it's SoCal or anywhere else. And if you show up at those bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to learn, you'll be able to get on a lot of boats with a lot of seasoned sailing talent. Show up with a six-pack and your own life vest for bonus points. Slowly, as you make sailing comrades, they'll offer to go on your boat to help you learn how to use it. This is what I did. And with them comes all of their knowledge from all of their hard knocks, so hopefully you can avoid a few of your own. Let's help someone that's new to sailing here. What advice do you have for any of them watching this video? Leave it in the comments. And new sailors, please scroll down and read the comments. Let us know what you're having trouble with and see what everybody else has to say.